ask that you fill out a card, and you'll have 4 minutes to speak. Please state your name when you come up to the podium. Do we have cards?
We have one from Mr. Don Block regarding pickleball.
Don Block?
Yes.
Okay.
I was here a couple of weeks ago, and I told you that we would be coming back with a proposal for 8 new outdoor pickleball courts, and so I'm back. You should have a packet in front of you that outlines some of the information we've gathered. We have a committee of about 8 people working on it. We've got some quotes from pretty much the cement to the layering to the nets, the posts, the fence, etc. All of that came in to about $286,000. My premise and our premise is from the sale of the community center back in 2019, the board took in, the township took in $295,000. It's still there according to Mr. Palmer when he and I spoke a few weeks ago. And I would hope also that it's got some interest over the last 5 years, at least some low risk CDs or something to grow it. I would guess maybe $50,000 more. I don't know that. Also, when Mr. Palmer and I spoke, he relayed that part of the conditions of the sale, in his opinion, if that money wasn't set aside for future development of a community center and or recreational facilities, he would not support that. And so obviously that was agreed to. I also talked to Aaron Weed this week. He supports Mr. Palmer's recollection of what transpired, that the board supported the sale, but the money would be kept in an account to be used to build facilities for community centers / recreational activities. As I spoke earlier, we all know that the school district is now going to be building a community center, so that need is no longer there. But one of the major things that was lost at the community center when it closed and was sold was pickleball. It's the fastest growing sport in the world. It's in the country in the last 3 years. It's grown by 243%, 13 million people playing. And as I said earlier, We Are Oscoda, prior to almost every holiday, somebody's writing wants to know where they can play pickleball when they come to town. Right now, other than Richardson, which is often closed and it's indoors, we have no answer. The west side of the state, as I also mentioned, Holland has 40 outdoor courts. They just built 10 brand new ones. The east side here, with the Sunrise side, there's very few courts, not any really good ones, between Midland, Bay City, and Alpena. So if we build 8 courts and they're quality courts, we will have people coming from all over, from Tawas, from Hale, from Harrisville, from even Alpena, to come and play pickleball. And those will bring hundreds of people in, if not per day, at least throughout the week. They'll be coming in, they'll be buying gas, they'll be eating lunch here, they'll be shopping here. And it's just will be a real boom for the community. And I strongly urge you as a board, particularly those that were on the board back in 2019, to support this request, because it's great for all ages. It's not pickleball, if you're not aware, it's just not for old people like me. The best player in the world is a woman, 17 years old. The best man, 23 years old, and it's younger and younger and younger. So it's a wide range of people who play. It's a great activity. It's a great social interaction between all generations, and it would be a real boom for Oscoda and the township. I've listed some potential.
Thank you. That's 4 minutes.
Okay. I listed some sites on the packet, that potential sites for
All right.
development.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have any others?
No.
Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. We have the regular meeting minutes from August 26th, the prepaid bills from September 10th in the amount of $23,789.54, Check run for August 29th of $74,575.48. Check run from September 3rd of $75,508.09. The C2R2 report, CWSRF report, the WRF report, the EPA community grant report, and tax overpayments and UV refunds. Are there any questions on any of these items? And if not, can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I have one.
Okay.
The motion in the minutes for developed by Osco said the motion carried, and that was a 3-3. Did not carry.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Anything else?
I believe under public comment for the second one, Dave Carmona's, this is not correct.
It says white streak.
Yeah, it says White Streak, White Streak, and it should say Dwight Street.
Spell check is a wonderful thing.
Anything else? All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with corrections?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda with corrections.
Support.
We have a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the superintendent report. First up is the row invoices.
Yes, my report is very simple tonight. It's just basically invoices. But before I begin, I'd like to say that it's been a pleasure my first week here getting to know all of you, all of the staff and department heads, and get to know what everyone's working on and their goals for the future, and looking forward to working with everybody. First up, we have 7 invoices from Row being paid from various sources. These were postponed from the August 26th meeting. We have an S&P Global invoice, and that's for analytical services pursuant to our issuance of 2024 CWSRF revenue bonds. And we have 4 invoices from the Iosco County Herald, and that is advertising pursuant to water and sewer improvements.
Okay. We'll take on the row invoices first. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve invoice number 114,619, C2R2 Phase 6, in the amount of $20,385 even, to be paid from C2R2 after reimbursement is available or if funds are currently available.
Support, Sutton?
What is the amount? We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Any comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make a motion to approve invoice number 114,626, 2024 Oscoda Township DWSRF, in the amount of $4,245 even, to be paid from the 2024 DWSRF checking account.
Support Cummings.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings. Are there any questions or comments on this bill? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make an additional motion to approve invoice number 114,627 for the 2024 Oscoda Township CWSRF in the amount of $19,186.35 to be paid from the 2024 CWSRF checking account.
Is there
Support.
support? We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire. Any questions, comments on this bill? Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make a motion to approve invoice number 114,628, the 2023 EPA grant in the amount of $32,590 even, to be paid from the 2023 EPA checking account.
Support?
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Are there questions, comments on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make a motion to approve invoice number 114,632, the C2R2 Phase 7, in the amount of $3,457.50 to be paid from C2R2 after reimbursement is available or if the funds are currently available.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Wusterbarth. Are there any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make a motion to approve invoice number 114,633, the CDSMI Service Lead Inspection in the amount of $13,281.25 to be paid from account 590-000-800.300.
I will support that. We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Palmer. Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make a motion to approve invoice number 114,651 for as-needed services in the amount of $1,292.50. And that would, there's a question there. I'm going to make the motion to pay it from the ARPA Fund 101-000-720.439.
Support?
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Any questions, comments?
What's the question about the ARPA fund versus the count number here?
There was an account number that was listed on the document that was, but then there was a question of why aren't we paying for the as-needed services for that boat launch out of the ARPA funds? Everything else for that boat launch has come from the ARPA funds, and we wanted to continue that trend. So, and after discussing it with Mr. Palmer, I thought, well, I'll make the motion that way, and if it comes out that we shouldn't, or that we have questions and we can't, then we'll change it.
Okay. Does that work, Ms. McGuire?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, we paid most of it.
You had a look on your face, that's why I was questioning. Go like,
I didn't remember seeing it, the ARPA
Okay,
either,
all right.
so I was going to ask the same question.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve invoice number 11,477,157 for analytical services in the amount of $16,687.50 to be paid from the 2024 CWSRF checking for S&P, for the S&P Global invoice.
Support?
For the news and for advertisements.
Where's this 11 million?
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Any questions, comments on this bill? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
On to the News Herald invoices, I would make a motion to approve invoice number $304,117,416 for advertising in the amount of $317.88 from the 2024 CWSRF checking account.
Support.
We're doing one invoice at a time? Okay.
If we don't have to, I would be happy to amend my motion.
I think we have to.
They have to be done
They have to be
individually
individual.
Do they?
That's why we do roll that way.
because they're not all paid from the same fund.
Oh, yeah, oh, yes, because they're not from the same fund.
And you read the invoice number on that, so that's what we're working on now. Okay. Any questions on that? Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve invoice $304,117,417 for advertising in the amount of $317.86 to be paid from the 2024 DWRF checking account.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Any questions, comments on this bill? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
Let's see, I'll make a motion to approve invoice number $304,117,603 for advertising in the amount of $317.88 to be paid from the 2024 CWSRF checking account.
Support Cummings.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings. Any questions, comments on this bill? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
And finally, I make a motion to approve invoice number $304,117,604 for advertising in the amount of $317.86 to be paid from the 2024 DWRF checking account.
Support Cummings.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings. Any questions, comments on this bill? Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
And thank you, Mr. Horning.
Thank you,
It's too
Mr.
bad we don't have
Spencer.
more livestock auctions.
Next up is Resolution 2024-26. This is the resolution transferring the duties from the supervisor to the interim superintendent. I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-26, appointing interim superintendent and transferring duties from the supervisor to the interim superintendent as presented.
Support Cummings.
Any questions, comments? This is pretty standard. We do this for every superintendent, whether they're full-time or interim. Give them the tools to be able to do the job. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next up is the first read of the blight ordinance update. We don't take any action on this. This is simply a first reading of this. We will take it up for a vote on the next meeting. But if anyone has any questions or concerns, now would be the time to speak, so we could address those.
There was a question about the villages of Oscoda and their ability to stay current with with Section I, fallen leaves. significant accumulation in piles of leaves may not remain longer than 7 days and shall be disposed of in a proper manner.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of us here on the board live in the, well, three of us live in the board, in the villages. And quite honestly, depending on where you live in the villages, you may have a large park nearby, behind you, around you. And you'd be competing with potentially dozens of trees. I mean, this becomes almost unwieldy. The HOA does hire a lawn service. It does include contracting the removal of leaves in the winter, but as we have seen, probably more times than not, we get early rain that then completely wets down the leaves, and you can't remove them. I mean, they're just like, it's too heavy. There's nowhere to, what are you going to do to get rid of them? And so I kind of see this as a bit of a problem to be this blanketed about the, number one, the duration. There's no dispensation for anything other than it's just got to be done in 7 days. I have a problem with that.
I could address some of that.
Sure.
So, in the blight ordinance, this is what it's written, so what you really need to look at is the process. So, if there's a complaint that comes in on that, on the leaves not being picked up,
Okay.
then the compliance officer will go over and give notice, and during that notice time, they will come back and state their plan to remove the leaves, and if this is the case, it's simply a matter of acknowledging that, okay, we didn't remove the leaves because they're wet, and we will accomplish that as soon as possible, as soon as the weather allows.
Yeah.
And that would be up to the discretion of the compliance officer to allow the time. If their answer is in a situation like, nah, I don't care, well, then the compliance officer is allowed to move to the next level of actually issuing a infraction. So, and those are, there's 14-day periods and then 30-day periods, and the way those infraction and penalty times. So it's not like, okay, 7 days, number 8, you're getting a ticket. That's not the situation unless there's no plan for coming into compliance.
The plan could easily be having to wait until spring, which is exactly what the entire HOA has to do.
Well, that would be up to the compliance officer then to address that.
And I really wouldn't prefer to leave it up to the whim of an individual, to be frank and honest about it. It's either written the way it should be, or it's not written the way it should be executed.
So what, and during a first read, what our responsibilities are, if we don't like something that's in here, then we need to address solutions.
Correct.
To that particular issue. So if we have a solution to, if you want to state a solution, how to fix that.
Any ideas?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think as I started in my first statement, the duration of 7 days is a bit stringent. I mean, we live in and around a national forest, or it's like, who are we kidding? You know, I think this is just a little bit excessive. All of us have trees. If they're not in our yard, on our property, they're nearby. And, you know, I can rake my yard all I want, but they're blowing in from a park across the street that has dozens of trees. They're blowing in from neighbors' yards. They're, you know, it's, I feel like this particular point is literally arguing with Mother Nature, and I think it's ridiculous, if you want my exact
So if I
truth.
understand this correctly, you're asking us to remove the reference to leaves?
Well, if you can't make it more reasonable, then I would say yes. But if you can come up with some idea that makes it more reasonable, then I would be, you know, I'd have a different thought. But at this point, to put me on the spot to figure out what the right solution is or suggest it. I don't know what the right solution is. It's the proposal you have here on the table, and it's
Well-
my response to it.
Okay, I'll try to explain the process. Process comes in is when we go to amend an ordinance, we will, we reviewed this at the planning commission level, we've done it through the subcommittee level and the planning commission level, and then this is a recommendation coming to this board. Now, if the board sees an area, then our options are, you can either send it back to the planning commission, or you can propose solutions to that for the second read, because the second read is going to come back at our next meeting or future meeting, and then those corrections would have been made before we vote on amending the ordinance. So,
Okay, well, while you've been talking, I've given it some more thought.
Okay.
And I go back to a basic definition. What is blight? Blight isn't something that offends or disturbs or concerns anybody if it has only existed for 5 minutes. It becomes blight because inherently it is existing over a period of time. So, at which point then I come back here and I say, 7 days is too short for it to be blight. It's blight when it's been there for a couple months, right? And actually not even when you consider it through the winter, because of course we don't get snow throughout our winter. So there's going to be months during the winter where you're going to see these fallen leaves if they couldn't be picked up because we had an early rain and it made it impossible for us to get rid of them. So I guess my thought here is, there's my feedback. I think through the process, someone else should have thought of this before this board.
Would it be possible to get, to define significant accumulation and then maybe just, maybe stretch it out for 14 days?
well,
Doesn't matter.
in the section 1 for the purpose of this ordinance, it states the purpose of this ordinance is to protect, promote, and provide for the health, safety, and sanitation and general welfare of the citizens of Oscoda Township, and to suppress disease and contamination by preventing, eliminating, and removing blight and/or blight conditions within said Oscoda Township. In statutes of law, there is law that defines what blight is, and that is in our ordinance. That is in the actual ordinance itself that defines what blight is, and that goes by those conditions. Now, I'm not, that people have looked at this at the planning commission level, and this is what the recommendation is. It's not that they haven't looked at it, it's that this is what we're sending, and if it's not something that this board would like to approve, or if there's sections that you would like to see changed in that, then it's simply a matter of identifying that one section. And as I stated, I'm not putting anybody on the spot. The whole board should be looking at this and saying, you know, if that's a problem, yeah, we can go in there and change this one thing. That 7-day goes for the entire blight ordinance, not just for one item in here. So I don't want to throw out an entire blight ordinance because we have a problem we just need to fix. In this case, it's the letter I that so far is what is causing an issue. So it may be just a matter, or putting a significant accumulation of leaves may not remain longer than 7 days, or when is wording to the effect that easiest available to fix it, to pick them up. It doesn't, you know, you're talking about one item, not the entire ordinance, so I don't want to throw out that whole thing. If there's better wording that we can go in, then we should make that recommendation, and we can change that for the second read.
And it doesn't say on here that a couple of leaves on your lawn, they're coming for you. I mean, significant accumulation in my mind is leaves that have fallen, you know, there were still leaves there last year, and there's a new pile of leaves on top of it, and you have to wade through your front yard to get out of it. That would be significant accumulation. That's why I'm asking for more of a definition of it. I mean, obviously, what you're talking about with, you know, some leaves blow across the road into your yard, that's not significant accumulation. But if you rake them all into a pile and leave it there, it's going to get wet, it's going to get stuck there, it's going to kill the grass.
Sure.
I think if you simply took off significant accumulation and just started with piles of leaves may not remain. At that point, you're identifying it. It's not open to interpretation. If it's piled up, it's now a blight issue. And that way you wouldn't have, to Tim's point, you wouldn't have the person out there, because you'd say what your significant accumulation is, his might be
Yeah,
different, mine
exactly.
might be
It's a matter
different.
of perception.
Your neighbor might think that 3 years significant accumulation, and then it's a complaint. So
Literally,
if you say piles, it gives your compliance officer the ability to say, look, it's fall and he's got a few leaves. Or, oh, you're right, he's got 16 piles that are 3 feet high and they've been there for a month. Maybe we should see what's going on.
And you know, and ironically, I don't know if you're in that part of the residence where the landscapers actually pile the leaves in your yard.
Yes,
They do that in mine too.
behind mine and right by the pump house that the township owns is where they
And
hide
it gets to
them.
be so big that I honestly think, gosh, I'd like to relive my childhood and go jump in the pile. You know? But, you know.
It's quite the pile. 'cause it's
Would
like
that be a
100
solution, is removing that significant, removing that wording out of there?
Start rated piles.
Yep.
Once it's in a pile, it's blight. You've piled it up. It's going. to
We're
be
just
issue.
looking for a consensus here, it's
Oh,
not
sorry.
really a vote,
I thought you
it's,
were just asking.
you know.
I would say, I can relate to Mr. Cummings' concerns, because I have a fairly large yard, a little over an acre, and I have a lot of oak trees on there. And I can go out and clean my yard, have a significant amount of leaves every 7 days for parts of the fall.
Right.
And then come spring, I've got leaves that have blown from across the street, from neighbors, from other places, that I have to go and do it all over again. So, I mean, I can understand, I think the, you know, the timeframe, I would say if we change that to like 30 days, where you have piles that are left for more than 30 days, then you have a considerable concern there. But I think you have to understand that our blight ordinances are enforced by complaints. We don't have anybody that drives around looking for piles of leaves or for junk cars or for anything else. When neighbors call and complain, then we send somebody out to look at what the situation is. So in this case, your neighbors are going to have the same problem you have. Everybody's going to have leaves, and so I wouldn't imagine that there would be a complaint from anyone that Mr. Cumming has got leaves in his yard, and I'd like to
Well,
see
he
them
does,
cleaned
but he
up
didn't
when
put 'em there, so.
they have leaves in their yard as well. So I think if we to change the wording, as Mr. Sutton suggested, and maybe put 30 days on there, that would take care of the.
And I would like to clarify one other thing, what Bill just stated. If a code compliance officer comes by at a complaint, no matter what the complaint is, and they see a similar complaint next door, they're also going to go and approach that. And so it's not 100% complaint driven, it's also a visual. If you have a junk car sitting in your yard and 2 doors down, there's another one sitting there that hasn't been complained about, they do respond to that also. So I wanted to clarify.
But it's initiated by.
Yes, it's initiated.
So, I don't mean to belabor this point, but it's worth stating. The HOA has struggled to try to find companies who will do the landscaping for what would be considered a reasonable amount of money. And it's a lot of money to any of us. It's a lot of money every year just for landscaping alone. The concern that was voiced at a recent HOA meeting was that this amount was going to have to go up because technically the landscaper has not been responsible for blowing the leaves out of flower beds, but only the property yard itself. And this has caused a huge problem this last year, this past spring, when people who frankly are elderly or in other ways housebound and can't get out to do the work themselves cost them a fair amount of money to get other people to go out there and handle a lot of leaves. And anyway, so I just wanted to kind of point out that this particular item is going to force the hand on the HOA. Because, to your point, Mr. Tajer, you can get a compliance officer writing a ticket or writing a addressing a complaint for an individual and maybe a neighbor or two, but for this to then become an entire community, I think I would not be happy to see that be interpreted or used this way either. So again, we live in a national forest. That's basically where we live, and some of us live around more trees than others. I just think that the way this has been written opens it up to unintended consequences that I think no one is looking for. I just think we should really revisit this one, think about this a little bit more. Thank you.
I believe that HOA, I respect, I belong, my home is in an HOA, and we have our rules that we have, and that's enforced by the HOA and voted on and can be changed by HOA. But in this case, the blight ordinance covers the entire township, and we're responsible for the taxpayers of the township to respond. Now, HOAs can have rules that either follow the township's rules, or they can be more stringent than the township rules. But the township rules are is the say. That's the law, because an ordinance is a law. So I understand what you're saying, but you know, looking at the big picture, you know, the solution, if we're talking about item I in a blight ordinance, is the problem. And if we have a consensus that this 30 days and removing the a significant accumulation will be a consensus, then we can move forward with a blight ordinance and get it through the process for approving it. So
I would still go back to the point I mentioned earlier about the time frame during the winter, you know, because it's not just 14 days or 30 days or whatever. It's whether or not these can even be removed at that time of the year. So however that needs to be added, I would add that as well.
So the board consensus, what is the board's consensus? Mr. Palmer, is what, you know, I'm just trying to get this settled.
Yeah, this is the first read. I think the rest, from what I read in the rest of the ordinance, seems to be pretty appropriate. If we could, Mr. Cummings wanted to offer a suggestion of how to reword this particular part of the ordinance, then perhaps we can move on. And I suggested 30 days if you had some other idea of what you'd like to see in there.
I mean, just no longer than 30 days. I don't know, some during warmer seasons or something like. Again, this comes down to seasons here.
I think what he's afraid of is that the guys come out, they start raking all the leaves into giant piles, and then it snows on them.
And that's exactly what has
Or
happened.
it rains, and then freezes, and then snows on them, overnight. Now, what are you gonna do with that pile?
Why not just add a parenthesis after that, just say weather permitting?
Yeah.
Oh,
Fine too. I like that.
all right.
That works.
So if we had,
That's the-
change it to 30 days and then removal, weather permitting.
Again, I don't think this is just limited to the HOA. I think this is anybody with leaves.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's just I'm living in an
I
example.
live up on a hill with oak trees in it. That's steep.
Yeah.
It's hard to remove.
All right. In section T, I was under the impression that the Iosco County issued the permits for the building permits, the electrical permits, all the permits were issued by the Iosco County courthouse area. Is that, but it says in section T that valid and existing building permit issued by the Oscoda Township.
We approve special land use permits. So if somebody has a special land use permit to like add in an addition on their home and they don't complete that, that
Right.
is also a permit.
But shouldn't it include permits issued by Iosco County? Because if I go and I'm gonna build a house and I get all my permits from Iosco County, because it's not a special land use, it's just a regular land use, then we would need to have that in there as well.
So when we have those permits that are issued through the township, they can't even begin the building process until they have their building permits through the county. But our zoning department is still responsible to make sure that they're following what those permits say. So that it would be our people that would go over there and say, hey, you're not following the permit, whether it be an electrical whatever.
Right, but it's
if it
not
was in the-
issued by Oscoda Township, it was issued by Oscoda
The use
County.
permits are issued by the township.
So you have to get a building permit, and then you get another permit from
You get a
Iosco?
bill, you gotta pay a permit here in the township also. Most of them are what, Jamie, I think they're $35.
Oh,
20
it's,
per
yeah,
fence.
they're not horrible, it's just making
Yeah,
sure people are
it's-
doing it right, yeah, I understand.
It's the other permits that, they have to follow all of the permits, and the bottom line is that $35 one, that's the one that really matters to our township, because that's the enforceable one that we would say it's not completed to what was approved. It wouldn't be the county taking anyone to court action, it would be the township.
So there's no way that a building could be partially committed without a permit from Oscoda Township? Good enough?
I have one question. In section 2, under B for front yards, number 3, talks about recreational equipment. Is that like side-by-sides? And then including but not limited to bicycle, toys, outdoor furniture should not be placed or located in any front yard for a period longer than 2 consecutive days. I'd like to see that change to at least like a week, maybe? Because you have people up here that are here on vacation that bring stuff that don't have anywhere to put that stuff,
Is that-
bicycles and stuff.
That
Number
is on the
3,
section 2 standards here?
yeah, yep, number
Front
3
yards.
under B, yeah.
And when it has that time limit on there, does that mean that it can't be, so my kid goes out, leaves her bike by the tree one day, and I go out and yell at her, hey, go pick up your bike. The next day, she goes and rides it around the block, but she parks it over by, still in the front yard, but she puts it over by the house. So the bike moved. Does that reset the time?
No.
No. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Right, so I would like to see that move to at least 7 days. That's my
Well, with all
opinion.
my kids, I agree. Because I try to police them, but boy howdy.
I have grandkids, yep.
Yeah.
2 days seems.
Is that a consensus
Yeah,
on
2
that?
days, 2 days, I would say a week. 2 days seems a little quick.
So I hope you're getting this, Josh, because that's,
No.
right, yeah, write
I
that
could
down.
write that down.
I need, what did Steve say that you guys wanted in there to wrap that one up?
After the change, just put in parentheses, weather permitting.
Weather permitting.
All we need to do is send this to John, and John
Oh,
will
okay.
write that out.
I would like to know what recreational equipment means too. Is there like,
It's a definition, there's state definitions we have
oh,
to
is there?
use,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Okay, anything else on
This one was.
this blight ordinance? We've got a number of things there to get revised before the next meeting.
B. as in boy.
I did have one that was, I think, less controversial. It's under grass and weeds. I think they were common downstate. They're maybe not as common up here, but ornamental grasses do naturally grow higher than 8 inches in flower beds. So if we could just do an exception for that over, obviously, the difference of the front yard going.
Again, that goes by definition of what grasses are. Ornamental grasses are defined differently,
Yeah, they would be, but it says grasses generally, so.
but ornamental grasses would not be in the grass definition. It'd be in ornamental grasses.
Right, but grasses isn't specified here, so it just says grasses, it doesn't
But
say one way or the
ornamental
other.
grasses wouldn't be covered by that.
Okay, well, it says weeds, grasses, I mean, it is probably, could be called a weed, but it's somebody that plants it in their flower bed, just happens to grow tall.
Can we
And
add
they
in-
say that this is an ornamental grass, it's not a lawn grass. It's not,
I was just.
well,
just
that's
going by
the answer.
Just going
to
by the wording.
Right, can-
That is the answer.
Yeah.
Could we add something about flower beds? It's just that way, if they've got a sectioned off flower bed in the yard, that it doesn't, and if they want to let the grass grow along in that section, maybe make it a percentage of the amount of the front yard can be garden.
Or just parenthetically after grasses, except ornamental grasses. I mean, it's different than, they look very different than a grass in your front yard. I mean, they're not the same.
They're also defined differently, though. That's the point that I'm trying to
Where are you defining
point.
it?
There is definitions for what ornamental grasses are, and it'll give a whole list of what ornamental grasses are.
Okay, so somebody doesn't interpret grasses to include ornamental grasses?
Or if I think
Correct.
if I think my grass is
Grasses would be
ornamental.
like what your lawn, you know, Kentucky bluegrass is a grass.
I guess I would have thought that would be true if it was grass and weeds or something like that, not grasses, because now it's plural and open to a broader subject, a broader list of inclusion. Anyway, all right.
So, do you have notes that we can take back to make the corrections in this that have been talked about?
If not, we can look at the video.
Okay. All right. Next is the accessory structure amendment, also a first read. I didn't anticipate this much debate on it, but that's fine. This is what our first read is supposed to be. If you have questions about something, we correct it now, and then when it comes back, we can pass it. Any questions on this accessory structure amendment? Okay, moving on. The pickleball request.
Oh,
I think probably in order to, if we were to take some action on this, we would probably need to go through an RFP process to get bids on building. I appreciate Mr. Block's putting the information together here, but under, township rules, we need to get bids to make sure we're getting the lowest price available and that it's being done by people that are professional in what they do. I don't doubt the information that he's brought to us here is probably accurate, but we do need to go through an RFP process, I believe, to do this properly. And at the same time, I think we could probably look for some grant funding, perhaps to help with some of this cost. As he indicated, we do have the money from the sale of the community center. But anytime we can get grant funding to help with some of these projects, I would like to pursue that to see if there's funds available. And I think there probably is a good chance there are. And so, number one is we would do an RFP for this project. I guess
Mr. Palmer?
the other part we would have to do is to talk about a location.
Yeah, I was going
for
to ask.
this.
we're all like, well, everybody wants pickleball, where are we putting it?
Mr. Palmer, just, shouldn't this go down, I mean, I appreciate all the information that Mr. Block provided. I know my wife plays pickleball, but shouldn't this go to the Parks and Rec Committee to them do the homework and then it comes to the board?
Yeah,
Yep.
It also needs to fit zoning.
yeah, I was getting to that because one of the, if we go through this process, it would come through the Parks and Rec Committee, and then they would look into we would have to issue the RFP, we would look into grant funding. One of the locations that it was indicated, I don't believe would be in the industrial zone. I don't think that would be inappropriate. I don't think that would pass the muster for zoning. But there are other locations in the township. You mentioned Furtaw Field. I know that's a touchy subject with everybody putting anything on Furtaw Field, but this is a fairly small endeavor. The size of this, I actually think Furtaw Field would be a perfect place to have that. It would draw people in,
And we
especially if
get
you had,
bathrooms out there too.
if you put a bathroom in and had some lights, you could play at night. The size of it would still allow for events to be on Furtaw Field. The other possibility would be down at the beach park. And I believe in one of our plans that we did some years ago, pickleball courts were included, I believe, if memory serves.
They were. They were, if I remember correctly, that was at a point when we were considering modifying or improving on Verta to have a social area and still have room for the festivals, and there was going to be a pickleball. I think there was even going to be a tennis court, if I remember right. I think there was a whole bunch of stuff that was included on that northern side of the park.
Yeah, they had, when Beck and Rader did the
Sketches.
parks plans for Ratliff Park, the beach park,
Yeah.
and then we added Furtaw Field.
Yep.
They put in some ideas for some things. This was a number of years ago before, I think before pickleball was quite as popular as it is now, so they didn't include pickleball per se in that plan. I think they did add like a tennis court or something of that nature. But I believe they also put in some things like that at the beach park. In the plan they had for the beach park, I believe there was
Right.
plans for some courts of some sort.
Yep.
There. So
Basketball
I think
court.
both those areas would be perfect for, and quite frankly, Furtaw Field, when you think about putting some lights on the court and still being able to have activities there, to me that seems like would be a good idea. But I think we need to send this to the Parks and Rec Committee and have them review all this information and bring back a recommendation to the board.
Well, with that, I'll make a motion that the board requests Parks and Rec Committee take up a pickleball plan and bring back an appropriate plan with capital costs and location to the board, to the township board.
We have a motion by Mr. Whistlebard, support by Mr. Cummings. Send this to the Parks Rec Committee to come back with a recommendation. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes,
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
Mr. Palmer, just before we leave the subject, Ms. McGuire, do we, just as in terms of like understanding how much money we actually have available for this, is it still 295,000?
it was never put into an investment, but it is in the general fund, in the 236 fund where it was put when we received the money back.
Right.
The money for the old commissary building, which we sold for about $600,000, was put into a CD in 2017. There was discussion, I believe, at a board meeting about putting it into investment money, but that was never voted on, and I actually have the minutes from the special meeting when we sold the property and the meeting before that, and it doesn't mention anything about earmarking that money. But it's in the general fund.
Got it.
The money is still there,
Yes.
bottom line.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, next up is the Chamber of Commerce Halloween weekend request. I believe they want to have a parade and some activities.
I would make a motion to approve the Chamber of Commerce Halloween weekend and parade request.
Support Cummings.
It's a great idea.
Questions, comments? Yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah.
As a parent, I think this could turn into something great where you take your kids, and I wish it was there when mine were younger, because I put in a lot of miles walking from that community.
Yeah.
The parent tax is not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
And I think the Chamber's aware of their responsibilities for providing insurance.
Yep, it's in the letter.
Yeah, it's all listed in here. Typically, the Chamber comes to us for proposals for events they want to hold, and we generally always approve them, because we've learned over the years what they need to do and what we need to do. We take care of the MDOT road approvals, and they do pretty much everything else, so. Any other questions or comments?
Just a short one, and that would be to Mr. Horning. The sentence in here that says we are seeking the township's assistance in obtaining required permits and road approvals from MDOT, they'll end up working through you. You'll end up having to approve the MDOT request.
Okay,
Or the
Duly
request.
noted.
Just so you know. Thank you.
I believe the township takes care of the MDOT request, the chamber takes care of the county,
Yep.
the Oscoda Road Commission.
We do it because we have the annual permit for us already.
Right. Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Wishtenbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the revised and updated zoning ordinance 165 proposal. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the revised zoning ordinance 165.
I will support that. We have a motion by Mr. Taser, support by Mr. Palmer. Questions, comments?
Is this in our capital improvement plan?
Partially. We have a grant. Mr. Taser, would you like to
Yeah,
talk about that?
we had applied for a $50,000 grant with a 25% match, and so that took it up to $62,500. And in our capital improvement plan, we had $30,000 set aside, so we're only using $12,500 of that.
Oh.
So the $50,000 grant and the $62,500 is
Covered.
covers everything.
Good.
And we do need desperately to revise our 165 ordinance.
I will explain a little bit more about what that actually is covering. You know, over the last number of years, we've been amending our ordinances, and we've done our business districts into the form base of the State Street neighborhood businesses, the corridor businesses, and now recently we just did the flight district, we called it the airport out here, and modified all of those. So what's left now in the zoning ordinance to correct is the rest of the residential districts, and but more importantly is the general provisions. So when you look at the in most of the like I'll take the State Street neighborhood business district downtown, most of your general provisions, and one of the things about form bases, they're written in the ordinance itself. And so your general provisions overall, most of them for that district are already in there. So what this will do by fixing that is it will apply the ones that are needed for the other areas and eliminate the ones that are covered already in the zoning that we have already approved. So it takes out the double talk language in there. It makes it easier for people to go in there and see what the general provisions are and what they can do and what they can't do, just like you do in the form base when you look at the charts. And you'll notice, like in the State Street neighborhood business district, you'll see 4 different types of zoning, and that's allowed in there. Well, we would do essentially the same thing with the residential, and then in that residential areas, a lot of your general provisions would be included. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Any questions on that? Like I said, we have a grant to cover most of this, and also money set aside in the capital improvement fund to do this, so it's desperately needed. That 165 ordinance needs to be, there's some very old sections of that ordinance that need to be revised. So, if there's no other questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Wishtenbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. That brings us to the second public comment. Anybody that would like to speak on any issue, you can come up to the podium. Please state your name for the record. Do we have anyone that would like to comment?
Mr. Gunnels?
Hello, my name is David Gunnels. encouraged today that we had discussion on the courts, but it has been 5 years. So we were retired in 2017. We enjoyed the recreational services that were at the community center until it closed. But because of that, we had to start looking outside the township for recreational activities. So we joined the community center in Hale, used their indoor and outdoor pickleball courts 3 or 4 times a week. While in Hale, we'd catch lunch there at Big Bob's, Victoria Cafe, Subway. We get gas, we get car washes, hardware supplies, do all our grocery shopping. We also joined the community center at Taiwas so we could have additional play. We play indoor pickleball there and outdoor on the courts that they have. While we're in Taiwas, we do the same activities. We buy things, shop, do that. We're thankful with the Oscoda schools for the time they've given us at Richardson so we can maintain a club and the relationships that we have. But it's not enough. We've been to Fairview, Augrey, Lewiston, Alpena, Prudenville, Gaylord, Midland, Bay City. They all have pickleball courts. They're not dedicated. Some are dedicated courts. Some are old tennis courts. But you're able to play on them. You know, like the tennis courts that are at the Oscoda schools, you can't play on them. They're not any good. So, you know, we're looking for something that the club can get behind and use. And these other clubs, they run fundraisers. They're engaged with their community. They're giving back to their community. They're doing programs with them. We don't have that here. We need stuff like that. So, you know, hopefully you'll grant this request. You're kicking it to the Parks and Rec. We'd like a contact. If we can get a contact from you, have some timing. We'd like to push on this rope and try to get things going. It's been 5 years. A lot of us in this program, we're not getting any younger. So we want to push this along the best we can. So appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Brockhahn.
Leonard Brockhahn. Just wanted to take a minute to encourage you, the discussion, or the part of the agenda where the accessory structures, language that you're looking at changing, just would like to encourage you to go ahead and do that. I'm looking to build on some property across the street from me, but I need the change in the language there to do that, and appreciate you taking this up.
Sure. Thank you.
Regina Fortner. And back on your blight, I'm sorry. K, hanging clothes. Okay, literally, I'm sorry, but I live out in woods, and that's literally my clothes hanging is a rope from one tree to the next. How in the world can that really be considered blight? That would be my question, okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no other hands. Board comments. Mr. Wisbarth.
No.
Mr. Taser.
I would just like to say, on response to pickleball, in my neighborhood, our neighbors built a pickleball court, I understand, and they do enjoy pickleball. I am able to sit up on my deck and watch pickleball games from the grandchildren and the adults sharing that, and it is very exciting. And so, yeah, I see the need there. And again, for the hanging clothes, what Kay is saying is hanging clothes shall not be hung on open front porches, trees, or fences. This section shall not prohibit the hanging of clothes on clotheslines erected in the rear yard. So I just want to clarify that, and that's what it actually says. So that's my comments.
All right, thank you. Ms. McGuire.
summer taxes are due September 16th. Generally, they are due on September 14th, but that is a Saturday this year, so we will be accepting them on time until 4 o'clock on the 16th. Usually we're there a little later after 4, so if you're running late. If you do utilize the drop box on the 16th that evening, that is also considered on time because we don't check it till the next morning, so you will be okay there too.
And when is the next refuge drop-off that's coming?
Oh, that's coming up this Saturday from 8 to 2. You can get your permit in the treasurer's office until 4 o'clock on Friday, and that's out at Traverse Sanitation. And if you're a property owner or resident, then you can get one of those permits at our office, but you have to purchase it ahead of time. Also, the treasurer's office will be closed September 23rd through the 25th of this month, and the water bill due date will be moved up one day to the 26th, as Jane and I will be out for educational classes.
I think we're actually moving it to the 27th.
Oh, good, 27th then?
think so.
Excellent, okay.
Mr. Cummings?
Yeah, I just had one item. It really didn't pertain to the board per se, but just something that a resident notified me having occurred, and it had to do with an election absentee ballot. Turns out that the post office returned an absentee ballot to this resident. The absentee ballot was meant for the May 7th election, what do I think you have, the proposal that we have. It was mailed on the 5th of April, but it was just returned on Saturday, undelivered. There was nothing wrong with the ballot, just suddenly showed up on the return address on the envelope. And I just thought just how concerning that is, because those envelopes are clearly ballot related. There's no two ways about it. I just thought that was very concerning, and I have no idea what this resident is going to be able to do about that. Clearly, we can't go back and count an additional vote at this point, but I just thought that was very disappointing. Probably end up having to pursue that with the United States Postal Service, but there you have it. That's all the joy I could bring to you tonight.
Mr. Spencer?
Well, thank you for that joy, Mr. Cummings. Nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Sutton?
Yeah, I would just like to say to the post office that is frustrating. Our local post office works very diligently, but a lot of our ballots, if they get taken with the mail and sent out to the sorting location, we just received returns from the last 2 elections, and sometimes it's 30, 60, 6 months. We received one from the February election in June, and it was because it was one that had been mailed out of state, and just in coming back 6 months later telling me that they didn't receive it. So definitely, if it's local and you can get it done, I recommend it. Out of state, and it's in many post office hands at that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is concerning. My comment is regarding the pickleball. Mr. Block mentioned that we had, at the previous board, when we sold the old community center, there wasn't an official motion to hold that money for a new community center, but it was discussed that we would like to have a community center at some point, and that money could be used for that. I know it's been 5 years, as Mr. Block pointed out. However, it wasn't until just recently that we learned the school was going to build a community center. So we have been considering a community center as part of our public service building and township offices, and that those plans that we've been looking at and did include a community center at one point. Of course, now we will take that out, so that'll be a different plan. But it hasn't been 5 years that we've been waiting to do so. Well, it has, but we've been looking at a community center, not pickleball courts. So there's a big difference there. But I think pickleball courts here in Oscoda would be a tremendous boon for the economy and for our township. It is the fastest growing sport, and people come, they have tournaments, people come to visit. Like Mr. Block mentioned, they spend money when they come, and I think it would be a good thing for our community to invest in that. So hopefully the Parks and Rec Committee will take a look at this soon and can get some sort of recommendation back to the board, and we can take some action. We have the money. If we could find some grant funding, that would be great. But my personal feeling is that I think to get some pickleball courts here would be especially if we could put up some lights and have some night pickleball and tournaments and so on and so forth would be a good thing. So that's my comment, and if there isn't anything else, I will call this meeting adjourned.